Hi, everybody. Today is February 27th, 2023, and this is a short recorded lecture for our week coming up. And then tonight at 5:30 on the 27th, we will also have a Zoom lecture where I will be speaking face to face. The topic for the lecture tonight is pretty much limited to talking about the next two sections of your paper that you're going to be writing, the results and the conclusions, and also taking questions from you about how you should proceed or anything that is causing you any questions. So the first thing I would like to do is to take a look at our Moodle page. Hang on just a second. I have got too many things open here, so this is going to have to get closed down just a second. Let me come over here to our Moodle page so that I can share this with you. All right, there we go. So as you know, we have just 8 weeks to complete our material, and tonight begins week number 7. So what I'm going to talk to you about right now are some risk management tips. And I've included a document, which is a one-page document taken from a very interesting source that I want to go through with you. And that's the only reading assignment for this week. We have a single discussion board assignment, and then we have 2 writing assignments, the results and the conclusion section. And there are examples of both. Now, this is our second to last week together. Next week, March this 8th week, which I haven't opened yet because I'm still tuning it up. But next week we will write the abstract for our papers, and then we'll just assemble the work that we've done, and we'll be getting ready to turn that final paper in and move on with our lives. So that's kind of exciting. Anyway, so this week the point I wanted to make was there's more writing, but there's very little reading. There's just a one-page document that I'm going to go over with you right now, and no additional reading aside from this. All right, so let's talk about 10 one-minute risk management tips. I found this in the book Financial Risk Management for Dummies, which was published in 2015 by a financial risk manager, last name of Brown. And I really liked it because it was really concise. And it's a lot about what we've been talking about, is sort of developing a framework for evaluating risk. So this goes all the way back to our discussion in Deep Survival, where we looked at taking the emotion out of it, or the quote from Warren Buffett, to be more disciplined. So when we have a risk, we don't want to mistake it for either a danger or an opportunity. The first thing we want to do is to decide whether in fact it is a risk. And then the second thing we want to do is to manage that risk in the most logical and systematic way we can. So without getting into a particular style of risk management or particular method, an overall method is to consider these 10 steps. The first one is that you should fear the market. If you're investing, and I don't mean fear as in back away from it and stay away from it. I mean fear as in healthy respect. The market is important to you. You're not important to the market. So your approach is pretty reactive. It's pretty much seeing what's going on out there and reacting to that, rather than trying to mold the market into anything that you would like it to be. So the best investors are pretty dispassionate about the way that they place their money. The second thing is to plan for success. While we cannot negate the idea that we may not be successful, if we're going to take a risk, we want to act like we're going to win. And I don't mean that act in the sense of like being overconfident. I mean, take the steps that you would take if you were going to win. The third one has come out really well in one of your classmates' paper, hire honest people. And really, there are so many different ways that fraud and incompetence and laziness and misdirection can hinder your progress. But when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. So in other words, don't necessarily listen to their words, watch their actions, and make sure that you're working with honest people, and don't try to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Really believe who your people are and make sure that you're working with honest people. The next step, the fourth one, is to listen another second. In other words, don't immediately assume a conclusion. If somebody's talking to you, give them just a little more time to express themselves, and you may learn something that you didn't know before. That actually goes along with step 6. So I'm going to talk about 6 before I talk about 5. Step 6 is don't ignore idiots. They can tell you things that smart people can't, and you may not hear it elsewhere. All of us, when we are in a certain group of people, we sort of get into an echo chamber, and we hear people, we're more likely to be around people that agree with us and people who are like-minded to us. And so sometimes it's really hard to see another side of a situation. And I've had this happen to me a couple of times where somebody outside of my normal circle has really been able to see things in other people's character that I'm not, because I tend to judge people based on my own criteria of how I would operate. And sometimes you'll get somebody who's very different. I don't mean any of these people are idiots. It's kind of a harsh word, but what I mean is, if somebody comes from a different background and a different perspective, they may give you some information that you don't know. So you may not be able to hear that anywhere else. So give everybody, if somebody has an opinion and wants to share it with you, take that as the gift that it is and listen to them. Getting back to number 5, split the difference. Don't go all in. Don't bet the farm. If something is risky and you want to dip your toe in the water, just go in a little bit or half. Hold back what you need to survive in your business. An example of this, I think I talked about this earlier. 30 years ago, the Montana Power Company went all in for telecommunications. They were sort of seeing boring old utilities as being the thing of the past, and that telecommunications were the thing of the future. And the company ended up bankrupting over it. Cost a lot of people jobs, cost a lot of people retirement, cost a lot of people their integrity, and it was a pretty horrible situation. But don't get out of your original business. Don't put all your money on a single bet. Step number 7, respect the past. New ideas have not stood the test of time. This happens a lot in education, where a new idea will come up, and we sometimes refer to that as a flavor of the day. But most of us who've been educated in a public school system have been either victimized or at least not taught well based on something that seemed like it was going to be the newest and greatest thing. So, for example, I went through a stage in when public schools were doing what was called the new math, which was basically it was basically problem solving with no numbers involved. This was before calculators, when I was a little kid. And it was relatively effective for me, but I was an outlier. A lot of my classmates basically had to go back and learn like multiplication tables and division after we'd been experienced by this. And new math was an abject failure. So respect the past, drilling multiplication tables works. Teaching for many people. Teaching phonics in reading works for very many people. Don't throw everything away for the flavor of the day, and look to those things that are perennial, that have stood the test of time. The next one, do the asymptotics. What an asymptote is where numbers approach a particular limit. They never quite get there, but it's something that's approached and never quite reached. So in statistics, what we're talking about are the tails, the extremes on either end of some behavior. What happens in the long run, and is the long run reasonable? So you need to take into consideration, in some cases, that might be the best case and the worst case scenario. It might be the time to failure for a particular item that you're putting to market, but you need to look at those extremes, not just what's going on most of the time, recognizing that what's going on in the extremes is not going to happen very much, but if it does, can you can you withstand the consequences of those results? And so that's, like I said, those are called asymptotes, basically. So, and asymptotes are bigger than that. Asymptotes means lots more things than that, but in this particular case, that's what it means. So think about the extremes, and is that a reasonable outcome? The next thing I think is extraordinarily important. Check the data. When I say data, I mean look at the real hard evidence, not your opinions, not your guesses, not the opinions of respected people, not the guesses of respected people, not what you hope will happen. Go back to the data. See what the data tells you. Follow the path. It's kind of like being a private investigator. They follow a chain of evidence and they don't pay that much attention to what people say to them, but they look at what the story that the evidence will tell them. That's what we need to do as risk management people as well. Encourage fast failure. Pull off that Band-Aid and get on with your life. Do not try to limp along with things for years and years and years. Now, it's always a good idea to try to adjust your course. If something is going downhill, sometimes you can pull it back into moving in the right direction. But after a while, move forward and put your resources, your time, energy, and money into something else. All right, so that is the end of our recorded lecture today. The other thing that we're going to do tonight, we will have a Zoom lecture that could be, you can either watch it afterward as an asynchronous lecture, or you can watch it tonight at 5:30. You can participate in that lecture with me. We're going to talk about how your paper is coming, the rest of the paper, and then, like I said, that document is the only reading assignment for this week. So I have a heavy writing assignment. There are examples for that, and then a discussion forum. So that's our task. That's what we have set before us. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at 5:30 if you're able to come. And if not, please don't ever hesitate to get a hold of me. We will visit at your convenience this week. My Calendly link is still up on my email. You can text me or call me or email me, and I will help you in as timely a fashion as possible. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you in a while.